What's going on, guys? How you doing? I'm excited to bring you this special episode with Elizabeth and I. We're going to be going through a few questions that you guys, our audience, are asking us. Done a couple of these in the past. This is something we want to try again because we've been getting so many questions and we get a lot of the same questions over and over. And we want to be able to provide the answers to as many people as possible. So we're going to go through 3 questions today. Elizabeth and I are going to talk about them, discuss them, give you some insight, give you some answers. And if you guys like this type of content, if we see that this is resonating, if we see that it gets a lot of downloads and views and everything like that, if it gets a lot of comments and shares, wink, wink, then we will do more of them because we get these questions all the time. Elizabeth's a pro at this stuff. I consider myself a pro in the making as well. We've got some other awesome people on our team that might hop on here too to answer some of these questions for you. So we're going to dig into those in just a second, but I just want to check in with Elizabeth and see how she's doing and what she's up to. So what's going on?
Hey, Joe. What's up? How you doing?
Doing awesome. Doing really well. Thank you. I'm glad that we made time to do this. We've been so busy with a lot going on, and you and I put this in our calendar last week. So here we are holding ourselves accountable to what's in our calendar and make sure that this stuff gets done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a lot going on. I am so excited that we're doing a webinar later this week on our 5 Mile Famous system. We haven't done a webinar in quite some time. I haven't been involved in one in a while, and I absolutely love doing those, especially when people can ask some questions live. So I'm super excited to be able to get some good questions to answer from our industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we haven't done one in a while. It's been at least, I think, a year. It's one of those things that I think a lot of business owners and people can relate to this. It's one of those things that works pretty well in terms of like we get people, we get questions, we get follow-up conversations. We end up working with clients, getting some sales. And, we get too busy and then we just stop doing something. So like how frequently in a business is it that like something works well and just get busy and stop doing it? Like, oh, why'd we stop? It was working. Like, I don't know. Right. So I'm excited to get back into not just this one, but we're going to be doing them at least every other month. So we're going to really kind of, I don't want to say perfect this. There's no perfection, but get really good at it.
Yeah, I'm excited. And that's so true. We hear that from clients all the time too. They'll say like, oh yeah, I used to, I was doing video for a while. It was working really well. Like, I got some calls from my video, or wow, I saw my engagement go up, and then I just kind of got busy. And so much of it just comes down to like actually coming up with a plan, putting it in your calendar, making sure you have milestones, and holding yourself and your team accountable to actually getting it done. So I'm excited that we're doing that this time. I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to be doing one next month in October with Company Cam, one of our partners, strategic partners here at Contractor Dynamics. So we'll be doing one for Company Cam as well. So stay tuned for some more on those webinars. But yeah, we're working hard on that this week. And not only doing this webinar, but like we're really building out our entire process, which is a lot of moving parts. So in the past, when it's been like the Joe show, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do a webinar next week and just kind of do it. But now it's like, we've been planning this thing for like a month. We've got like a million moving parts for the pre-webinar, the actual webinar, follow-up. So there's this whole machine that we're building, and we're documenting everything that we're doing to build this process to ensure that we stick with it long-term, even when we get busy. Or, hey, let's face it, in a company, like you mentioned, Elizabeth, people do say video and then they stop. Well, a lot of times that's because like someone in the company was doing it and then that person is no longer with the company. So then like that thing just stops existing, right? I think that hopefully you and I will always be with Contractor Dynamics, so that won't change, but we can have additional team members come in and start to host these webinars as well, which I would be really excited about because I love doing them, but it's awesome to give other people an opportunity to do that as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. You know what? That just made me think, just a little story that I'll share before we jump into our questions here. I was working with one of our clients, Kenny Locatelli, great guy. He was telling me that there were all of these things that people on his team kept coming to him and asking him about, whether it had to do with something with production or some kind of a system or some kind of estimating. And he admitted that he wasn't able to get certain things done because he was constantly fielding questions from his team. And he said, I'm really the only person that can answer those right now. And I just challenged him and said, is it possible that if you record yourself doing this thing, or if you document yourself doing that, is it possible that someone else could do it? And he said, absolutely. And so what he started to do was he started to document himself doing these specific things and answering these specific questions one time, so that then he could delegate those things to other people on the team, so that he was then able to get other things done. It empowered other people so that they can kind of teach other people on the team to do things. And then he was able to get more done that he was really wanting to get done. And that's so what we're doing with these systems is, once you have an SOP, once you have something really documented so that, a stranger off the street can come in and do it, then you're really empowered to be able to do other things. So I'm so excited that we're going to put this together, because like you said, other members of our team will be able to do these as well now.
Yeah. And man, there's so much to unpack in what you just said there. And that's such an excuse that we all make. Like, hey, I'm the only one that can answer those questions. You're not unique, bro. It's not you, Elizabeth. But like, and anyone listening, like Richard Branson has figured it out. Elon Musk has figured it out. Roofing company owner that does $75 million a year that you look up to, he or she has figured that out. And so you're not unique. Like that excuse of like, I'm the only person that can answer these questions. It's just that. It's an excuse. It's an assumption. And we have to get out of our own way. And if we don't, then we are always going to be stuck in the weeds in our business. And also, like Elizabeth alluded to, like we're going to be holding back other people on our team who want to step in and do those things. So that is so crucial. I just did that last week. I tried to do that as much as possible. I was trying to think of what exactly the thing I was doing was. I don't remember. But I did this thing and I'm like, all right, I really shouldn't be doing this. But right now we don't have anyone else on our team that is like not equipped, but it's not anyone's role. So I recorded myself doing it with Loom, LLOM, which is a screen recorder that we use a lot here at CD for training, internal training. And it took like 15 minutes. I did the thing. I recorded it. I put the Loom in our Monday board, our project management. And in the video, I was like, I don't know who's going to be doing this in the future, but I'm recording this as if it's the last time I'm ever going to do this thing. And next time someone else is going to do it. So that's the mentality. Like, I know that I could do this thing in 5 minutes, but if I take 15 minutes and record myself doing it, maybe it's the last time I ever have to do that. So think about that option as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Great stuff. There really is so much to unpack there, but there's a whole other podcast that we could record for that. So we can get into
it. Let's put that down, how to delegate and elevate. That would be a really good topic for a podcast because, so many people that we work with just are like, just so stuck in their, in the weeds. And we all are to some extent. And if you're not intentional about it, like Elizabeth and I are every week, like delegating and elevating, it's a proactive thing, then you're always going to be stuck. So anyway, that's just a little bonus content for you guys. Hopefully you find that valuable. In a nutshell, I think there's tremendous power in challenging the assumptions that we're making, or when we hear things coming out of our mouths, like trying to catch ourselves and be like, is that really true? Or is that just an excuse or something that I don't know another way? All right, Elizabeth, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
And by the way, I'm not just putting you on the spot. We can have a discussion about these because I think we have a lot of the same perspective, but maybe, a couple different nuances to the way that we answer these. So number one question, this comes from our buddy, Chris Doral, who is a former roofing company owner and now is a kind of consultant to the industry. He asked us on Facebook, or what questions should I ask, or should a roofing company owner ask when hiring an outside agency to ensure they're the right fit? Website, Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, whatever. What questions should someone ask an agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of what we do with our clients is helping them know what they should be looking for with an agency and kind of how to hold their agencies accountable. So this is a very frequently asked question here. There obviously are going to be very specific questions for each of those, for an agency that's going to do Facebook ads, for SEO, for website, individuals. But your general questions that you want to be asking are going to be things like, what kind of reporting are you going to get? Very often what we find with clients is that they get some kind of email monthly from their agency and it's got a bunch of words on it and they're not really sure what it means. So ideally, you want to make sure that you're getting consistent reporting from your agency, and you want to know that your agency will meet with you, your agency or your, whoever's assigned to your particular account, your account manager. You want to make sure that they are going to be able to meet with you consistently to explain that reporting, that data, those metrics. So that consistent communication, that feedback loop is absolutely important. So make sure that that is something that you're going to be able to have set in place, that you're going to rely on every single month. Some people even do it bi-weekly to make sure that you're watching the dollars that you're spending and actually seeing what's being done with those particular dollars. So that's a big one, making sure that there's an open communication, open feedback loop so that you are always 100% certain of what's being done with the dollars that you're spending. The second thing that I would encourage a roofing company to ask their agency, specifically with if someone is going to be handling your website or doing Facebook ads for you, is what kind of ownership and access you are actually going to have to what they're doing. Meaning, with your website, are you still going to be able to make changes to your website? Are you still going to own your website? Are you going to be able to have that content if you part ways with that particular agency? With your Facebook ads, make sure that if there are tweaks that you want made, you have access to be able to do that. You want to be able to see what's going on in your particular account. You want to know the kind of ad spend. You want to know that you have control over that content. So make sure your access isn't limited by that particular agency. One thing that we see fairly frequently is, especially with websites, is that people will work with an agency and then realize that they have absolutely no control over what's going on their website. They're not able to update or change things. It's difficult to get in touch with someone to have changes made, or when they decide that they want to do something different with their website or transition over to another company, they realize that they've lost all of that content that's there. So you want to make sure that you're going to still have access and control over your assets. Remember, you guys, this is your brand. This is your reputation. So you need to be able to have control over what is going on with your brand. If there are things on your website or things in your Facebook or social media ads, or, things that you're just generally putting out on the internet where people are spending a ton of time, you need to have control over the way that's represented, because that is how people are going to remember you. So making sure you have that access and control is so important.
Huge. Yeah. We built a lot of websites for clients when we ran the agency, and we're always like making sure that they always have ownership and access to everything, because that's an asset for their business.
Absolutely.
Cool.
One of the things that I think we work with our clients on doing this, but I think this is a knowledge gap in general when it comes to marketing. Agencies are incredible. There are some really amazing agencies out there. And many of them, especially who are niched to certain industries, they've got really, really good ideas. But what people need to remember when they're hiring an agency is that you know the goals you have for your company. You know what your values are. You know your customers best because you are the ones on the ground with them. So you need to be heavily involved in the strategy and the message and the content that is put out to your audience. Because if it is not, cookie cutter, if it looks like everybody else in your market, if it is not exactly the way that you want your message to be portrayed, that could be damaging to your reputation and to your brand. And that's something that it's going to take time to be able to get away from. So it's so important to make sure you have control over that messaging and that content. The people who are most successful with their agencies are the people who are watching the data and having that frequent communication, and the people who are heavily involved in creating the content. Meaning on your website, if I go onto your website and I find that you've got Canva stock images all over your website, I'm telling you, it's not going to perform in the way that you want, and it's not going to look like you're doing business with real people. You need your people and your projects on your website, just like you want on your social media as well. So you need to make sure that you're going to be able to be heavily involved. You're going to create the content. You're going to put together the messaging, and then your marketing agency can help with the actual distribution and the strategy.
Great point. You had a meeting yesterday with a prospective client, roofing company, marketing manager, and he had just fired their social media marketing company. What was the reason for that? Did he give you one?
Yeah, his reasoning was he wasn't really sure exactly what they were doing, and he also wasn't seeing any results. They were paying them, and he knew that ads were running, but he didn't really know what kind of content they were putting in the ads because they weren't heavily involved in that. And then they weren't seeing actual results from those campaigns. Unfortunately, they'd been working with them for quite some time. So if you're having those consistent meetings, you should be able to catch things much sooner than 6 months in. So ideally, you want to make sure that you have a really good, consistent cadence to be able to hold, each other accountable. Give your agency an opportunity to say, hey, we really need more content from you to be able to run, better campaigns, because we need to be providing that as well. That's a two-way street for sure. But yeah, just not really sure what was going on and not seeing results.
Yeah, guys, we hear this a lot. It's 6 months, 12 months, no results. It doesn't take that long to figure out if an agency that you're working with is doing the work, doing the right work. And hey, you might not get results after month one. There's a good chance you probably won't, because marketing does take a little time to build up. However, you should be able to, like Elizabeth said, with those reports, with those meetings, understand like what they're doing and if you're on the right trajectory. And, you can sniff out BS if you're getting BS, right? But like having those meetings will give you an idea as to whether you're on the right track. It's one thing to, work with an agency for 6 months. Sure, you waste time, you waste money, but the much, much bigger thing that most people don't think about is the opportunity cost, right? Going 6 months or going 12 months with bad marketing means you're missing out on a whole, could be millions of dollars in business that you could have had if you worked with like a good agency that knew what they were doing. So that's the bigger hidden cost here.
100%. Speaking of cost, I would say one of the last things that I would encourage people to do when considering an agency is talk about the investment. Like, what does your actual contract look like? How are those dollars being spent? Is that going to be spent on, there's an agency cost and then there's ad spend, particularly if people are going to be running ads for you, where they're going to totally decide how your budget is spent. So make sure you have a really, really good understanding there, like how much is being spent on actual ad spend and how much is actually paying the agency, for the work and the time that they're doing. How much is being spent on, whatever the agency is handling for you. So make sure you have a really good understanding of that contract length and, what kind of negotiations you can make there, and then what your actual dollars are being spent on. That's a big one.
For sure. Yeah, that clarity. And I think a lot of business owners are just so, maybe it's a lack of understanding of marketing. Maybe it's just they don't spend the time. It's like, oh yeah, this guy sounds good. Let's sign up for this. And there's not really much thought that goes into it. And on that note, one of the things that I wanted to add is make sure that you're talking with a marketing agency or even a freelancer about your long-term vision for your company and what your goals are. When Elizabeth and I have these meetings with prospective clients, we're always like, okay, what's, trying to dig into what's going on, their current situation. And it's always like, all right, where are you now with your revenue? Where was it last year? Where is it this year? Where do you want to be? If it's in 3 years, 5 years, yeah, it sounds cheesy to say, hey, what's your 5-year plan, right? But that's the only way that we can really help companies put the right pieces in place to help them get there. And so many marketing agencies are so short-term focused, and there's so much pressure on both sides to create results in the short term. The best marketing agencies and training companies like ours are the ones that really understand the big picture and help you put those pieces in place strategically. All right, in the first 3 months, we're going to focus on this. And then we're going to focus on this part. And then we're going to get to that, right? You're not trying to do everything at once, and really getting on the same page with what we call that macro marketing strategy, which is not just the Google ads, not just the social, but what's your budget look like? What are you doing offline? What are you doing online? What's your CRM look like? What's your lead handling process look like? What's your follow-up process look like? All those things are your macro marketing strategies, never just this one little thing. So that's an important question to make sure that you're asking your agency. Not even a question, just a conversation to make sure that you're on the same page. Because we found that most marketing agencies will not ask you those questions. They just want to figure out what your pain point is and try to make a sale as quickly as possible. And you should hey, let's put the brakes on a little bit. Let's pump the brakes. Let's have that conversation about the long term as well.
That's a great point. You know what? I'll give an example of that. About maybe 6 or 7 months ago, we have a client, a residential roofer up in Ohio. They were working with us and they basically came to us and said, okay, you guys mentioned that you can give us some advice on what to do with SEO. We know we've got someone working on it, but we have no idea if it's working. And so we said, great, we'll do an SEO audit for you. We'll give you some feedback. So Sydney on our team did an SEO audit and started to ask me some questions. Well, what are their particular goals? Like, are they wanting to really build out a gutter division? And I said, no. In fact, they actually mentioned that they do gutters just as an aside kind of thing to make some extra money when they can. And because occasionally people ask about it. Well, what we found is that the highest ranking keyword for them, all of those were around gutters. So they were ranking really well with gutters, but that's not even what they want to do in the future. They would eventually like to get rid of that completely and only be doing roofs. But because they hadn't communicated that to their agency and maybe their agency never asked, that was something that they were spending, time, effort, and dollars on, writing a lot of blogs about gutters, making sure that they were really showing up when people ask about gutters when that's not something that they really wanted to focus on. So making sure that you're clear about your goals, don't wait for your agency to ask. If they're not asking, that might be a bit of a red flag. But number two, you make sure that you go and say, this is my brand and this is what I want. This is where we're going. These are our ideal projects. These are the areas where we want to be working. This is what we're going to be doing in 5 years. These are the, the different things that we're going to be adding into our business so that then you can create a strategy that's going to get you there. Because like you said, Joe, you are not going to be able to market effectively if you don't know where you're going. If you're just sort of putting things out there and thinking that you're showing up more, that's okay, but you're not going to be going in a specific strategic way and your marketing is not going to be results driven. So you really have to take control and communicate where you want to go.
Yeah, this might sound, I don't know that situation specifically, but this might sound cynical, but I'm guessing like this marketing agency, it was too hard for them to rank that client for roofing. And so like, what can what's the angle here? Let's rank for gutters and let's show them that they're getting more website visits and more hits and more impressions and all this other stuff that doesn't really pay the bills, just so that agency could look like they knew what they were doing. I don't know. Maybe that's too cynical of me, but I wouldn't put it past people.
It's totally possible that client had no idea because they didn't know how to do an SEO audit. They didn't really know the questions to ask. And so thankfully we were, Sydney was amazing. She was able to kind of show them that. And then they were able to go to the agency and say, hey, this is not what we're looking for. This is not what we want. We want to make some adjustments. And so they were, empowered to be able to go in the direction that they wanted to go now that they had that knowledge.
All right. Awesome. Love it. So yeah, again, we can go way deeper on that as well, like a whole episode in and of itself. If you guys have questions, specific questions on any of this stuff, feel free to reach out to us at contractordynamics.com. We'll put a link below. If you guys want, you can set up a time to talk with Elizabeth or me, like personally, like one of us. We don't have a sales team. We are the people that have conversations and marketing clarity conversations with prospective clients and anyone really that wants some clarity on their marketing. So if you're interested in that, we can set up a time where you hop on Zoom for 30 minutes, no pressure. Kind of ask you some questions about, where you're at, where you're looking to go, what you're doing marketing wise, all that sort of thing. And really give you some clarity on this stuff because we know that you're not a marketing expert, okay? You're a roofing company owner. You're a leader in a roofing company. If at any point you would like to do that, feel free to head on over to our website at Contractor Dynamics. Click one of the buttons there. You'll end up on my calendar or Elizabeth's calendar, and we could walk you through this stuff on a personal level. So that is our little, invitation to you guys. I think that first question or the end of that your answer there was take more ownership, know how to ask the right questions, the reports. That feeds really well into our second question, which is why should a contracting company, roofing company, hire an in-house marketing manager?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one of my favorites. You're welcome. It's one of my favorites. I have these conversations frequently, right? I'll meet with an owner and the owner will come and say, one of these things. They'll say, I've been on this cycle for years where I do some sort of marketing for 6 months and then I get too busy, or I do some kind of marketing with an agency and then I'm upset, or I am trying to do this, but I don't have the time, or yeah, I'm doing it, but the most I can absolutely do this is going to be once a week. I've got too much going on. And here's the thing, when you are an owner or an operator, a sales manager, at the end of the day, you're wearing a lot of hats. You are going to, at the end of the day, when you're looking at marketing and sales, if there's a sales crisis, more than likely you're going to handle that sales crisis, right? That's kind of our go-to. That's what we do when we're growing businesses. It makes sense. We're going to focus on that quick revenue. But here's what happens. Marketing gets put on the back burner. And then, like we hear all the time, there's just a cycle of really not getting any traction. So you've got this business that's kind of growing, but you kind of seem like you're at a plateau. So here's what happens. When you're able to hire a marketing manager, you have a person that is laser focused on marketing all the time, meaning you're not going to have undivided attention, meaning it's not going to be dependent on an owner or an operator who is out, doing all kinds of things and putting out fires and all that. It's going to be one person who is not seasonally focused, but always focused on the marketing efforts. So you're going to be building that brand consistently. You're going to have someone who's going to be able to drive revenue and make sure that the marketing initiatives are getting completed. One of the big things that we hear very often from roofing company owners is that they really just don't have the time for marketing, because it really does take a lot of time. Whether you have an agency or not, there's a lot to do. There's in-person things to do, and there's things to do digitally, and there's things to print, and there's job site things that you need. So there's a lot to manage day to day, week to week, month over month, and every year. And so having someone that's hyper focused on that work to make sure they're taking ownership, that they're the GC, right? They're making sure that they're paying attention to what the agency is doing, and they're working with the sales team to make sure that they're getting the absolute best information from the sales team. They're working with the admin to figure out what kind of questions they're getting when people are calling. They're, working with the people out in the field to make sure they're getting the content. They're looking at the data. They're working with the budget. That person is going to be a revenue driver in your business. And when you have that in-house, you really have control over your brand and really the growth of your whole company. So that is a vital position to have. Maybe you don't have that when you open up your doors on day one. There's plenty that you can do as an owner if you set that time in your calendar to get that done. But as you grow, that's going to be a really important position to have in your business.
It really is, guys. And maybe guys and girls, you never thought of that before. Maybe they were like, oh, we're like not big enough to hire anyone full time or anything like that. I just want to plant the seed in your brain. If you're going to invest, call it plus or minus 50 grand a year, depending on where you are in the country and the comp structure, but just call it 50 for, argument's sake. And that person knows what they're doing. And especially if they're trained by Contractor Dynamics, I mean, come on. That person is going to be able to, like Elizabeth said, be a revenue driver and do a lot of things and drive a lot of business. Like they should be driving $500,000 in revenue, which gives you a 10x return on that employee. So think about that. I mean, we have a lot of clients that are at that, $2 to $3 million a year revenue range that have this full-time marketing person in-house. When you're small, that might be you, it might be a spouse, it might be one of your kids. We have a client who hired his mom to do his marketing. So you can figure it out, but you can probably hire that person sooner than you think. You don't have to be a $10 million a year company to hire a marketing manager. In fact, you might not get there without that person. So I would, just try to shift your mindset around that.
Absolutely. And, I think what happens sometimes is that people, they hear the term marketing manager and think, yikes, that's going to be a lot. Do I even know what to do with that person? Do I have what it takes to pay that person? And here's what you can do as a smaller company. Like Joe said, you can do a lot yourself. You can have a friend or a family member or whatever. But at some point, if you can hire even someone part-time, just to start out helping you with things, that's a great start. And here's why. That's better than you trying to cram it in yourself. Even if it's someone part-time, that every single week there is someone who's going to focus on marketing in your business. Because what will happen is if you don't have anyone, is that there will sometimes be weeks when you don't focus on marketing at all. Just because, businesses have challenges, things come up that you're going to have to focus on. So even having someone part-time in the beginning who's just focused on marketing, they're just making sure that you're getting in front of your people, that you're farming your market. That's going to be really beneficial. And then when you're ready, you can bring that person on full time or find someone who can really manage that all themselves. But certainly it's so common that you really need them before you maybe feel comfortable with it. And sometimes that can there's a period in there where you're adjusting to, having someone else on the payroll. But like Joe said, that is a revenue driving position. That position supports sales. That position drives the closing rate up. That position is going to help you get in front of more people and really have control over the dollars that you're spending. So that position is going to more than pay for itself for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a situation this morning where I had a follow-up call with a prospective client, and they'll be around $3 million in revenue this year. They want to get to 10 in the not next year, but in the next 5 years. So that's cool. That's reasonable. And so normally, like an ideal client for us, as you know, is a roofing company that has a full-time marketing manager in-house. Like those are our clients that have the most success inside our marketing training program and with marketing in general. This company that I met with last week, the owner, he does not have that person. And so I explained that to him, and he said, no, I want to do the marketing. Like I want to be the person as the owner. And I pushed back a little bit because we want to be trusted advisors and not just try to sell anyone. Like, hey, do you realistically have like 6 to 10 hours a week of focused time for marketing? Yes, like I've gotten rid of these things. I can focus on marketing. I want to do it. And then we'll eventually hire a marketing manager. Okay, great. We had 9:00 call this morning, and he was a no-show. Like, darn. No-shows for are pretty rare because we just, we're really relationship based. So I was like, all right, something must be going on. Email him, I text him, he gets right back. He's like, oh man, so sorry. I got caught up on a project that went sideways. I had to be here this morning. Can we reschedule? Awesome, let's reschedule. But my first part of that conversation when we have it is going to be, man, can you really focus on marketing if you're going to be out on jobs? Like now, maybe this is like a once a year type problem that he had to address. Understandable, but if this is something that he's doing on a weekly basis, he needs some help. And he might want to do the marketing, but when it comes down to it, he still seems like he's playing firefighter in the business a little bit, which is, that's okay. We all have to do that at some point in the business, but maybe, he needs to get some help on that. And for this guy in particular, I think that he's one of those guys where he was like, hey, when I get to this level, I'll hire that person. But I want to challenge him and say, yeah, like Elizabeth said, if you have a part-time person, even just to do this stuff 20 hours a week, 10 hours a week, that's going to be a game changer because you're out in the field, working with your people. So just to kind of, it happens all the time, not the no-show thing, but just where the owner thinks that they can spend his time on marketing. And then when push comes to shove, it doesn't get prioritized.
Absolutely. That's a very common thing that we see. And you owners out there who love marketing, that's awesome. You are still going to be the one driving the way that the brand looks. You're going to be working with that marketing person to say, this is where we're going. This is what I want to see. You can still have a hand in all of that, but you want to make sure you've got a dedicated person who is not going to be out in the field. They're not going to get that call to go to that job. They're not going to have to answer that phone. They're going to be able to be there and get that done no matter what, because that's what their focused role is. And they can really support you in that. And you'll see incredible growth, and you'll have relief knowing that that's going to be done consistently in your business.
Yeah, love it. All right, cool. So let's get to the third question. We have 3 options here that you sent me this morning, Elizabeth. I'm going to pick one, and we'll save the other 2 for another episode. So question number, we already went 1, 2, 3. So I'll do ABC for this. So question A, if marketing isn't generating immediate leads, how is it working, or why is it beneficial? Okay, that's a good one. Question B, why should I market in the slow season if I'm not getting appointments in a slow season? Good one. Very common question. And question C, what should I be tracking to know that marketing is effective? All right, I'm going to go with question C. We'll answer that one now, and then we'll save the other 2 for another episode. A little teaser for you guys. So, Elizabeth, what should I be tracking to know if my marketing is effective or not?
Yeah, this is a good question. And this is really, it's really
It's
You're
your
welcome.
question, actually.
I'll let you take credit for that. It's really multifaceted for sure. There's a lot that you want to track, but I'll keep it simple here. Let's start with your CRM. So inside your CRM, if you're using one thing that we see very commonly that is not tracked well is marketing sources. So there are a few metrics that you want to track with every source, which means if I go into your CRM, I should be able to see the events that you attend. I should be able to see all of the marketing where you're spending your money. I should be able to see Facebook groups, Facebook organic, Facebook ads. You really want to make sure that you've got every source that you could possibly think of, your truck wraps, your yard signs, whatever marketing sources that you have. And you might need to sit down and think about what all of those are. You need to be tracking every single one of those in your CRM. Now, I know that can be kind of difficult. Call tracking numbers are a really good way to do that. So I would definitely suggest that people look into something like CallRail. That's a fantastic way to be able to track some of those individual sources. You know, if you've got truck wraps with a specific number, if you've got your yard signs with a specific number, your Facebook ads have a different number, that kind of thing, that can be helpful. But you want to make sure you've got those sources in there, because here's what can commonly happen is if you're entering people manually into your CRM, which as we know, that is going to be something that happens. Some people are going to get automatically put in there from different sources if you have some integration set up. But if you don't, manual entries often get put in as like other or, Google. And very commonly, there are sources in there that need to be listed that aren't being tracked. So that's a big one. Make sure you've got your marketing sources in there, as many sources as you can think of. Then here's the other thing that you want to track. You want to track the amount of money that you're actually spending, the leads that you're getting, and the appointments that you're setting from those. So that's a big one. You have to be able to know your set rate to know if that marketing is actually being effective. And then you want to know from those appointments that are set, how many of those are turning into contracts, and then the value of those contracts. So you should be able to pull that report from your CRM or from your Google Sheets so that you can then see this marketing source. We spent these dollars. We had these many leads, these many appointments, these many contracts, and this was the value, so that you can actually figure out your cost per lead and your cost per customer. But one thing that we very frequently see is that people will put actual appointments set into their CRM, but they won't put just the leads because they think, well, we didn't even set that. We didn't even get a call back. We didn't even have a conversation with that person. Well, that is really valuable information to know for marketing, because if you're spending X amount of dollars and you're getting 10 actual leads and not a single one of those turned into an appointment, we need to know that, because there's something broken on the marketing side. We need to change our targeting. We need to change our messaging. We need to change our, location that we're actually focusing on there. So that's really, really important there. And then within each of these channels, let's just take social media, for example, you should be tracking some other metrics there, not just leads. You want to focus on the actual reach that you're getting. You want to focus on the actual engagement that you're getting. You want to see how many people are leaving social media and hopping over to your website. So that traffic is really, really valuable, because you guys, leads are great. Obviously, we all need leads. We want leads, but not everyone in our market is ready to fill out a form and get a roof today. A lot of people are not even thinking about their roof at all. Which means as we're farming our market, as we're putting our value out there, as we're getting people to know who we are and what we're, how we're the, most trusted person in our market, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to how many people are actually seeing that content, how many people are visiting our website and just thinking about it, how many people are watching those FAQ videos that we're putting out, how many people are, just clicking on certain pages on our website, because then we're going to know what's interesting to our market. What's engaging to our market? What's their buying process actually look like? Because once we know that, we're empowered to then spend our time and our effort in the right places. So marketing sources, your actual, the numbers that you're seeing move when it comes to the actual leads, the appointments and the contracts, and then some KPI, some different KPIs and metrics on those individual channels as well. So we could literally create a massive monster of a spreadsheet for marketing. But CRMs out there are usually really pretty well equipped. If you use them correctly, if you really build them out, they're pretty well equipped to give you the numbers that you're looking for. You have to take control of that, though. You've got to really be able to dig in and make sure that you're tracking those numbers.
100%. Yeah, that human element is important. Like, okay, you can look at the data, but you also have to be able to look at that from a qualitative perspective and try to draw some conclusions. And that's another reason why a marketing manager can really be a great friend to have inside your company, because as an owner, man, it's a lot to look at and track. So, for example, Elizabeth and I work on this stuff together on a weekly basis. We're tracking all the leads, appointments, sales, ROI, that sort of thing. And it's an ongoing process. So, for example, this morning, the particular gentleman who did not show up to our appointment, when we talked last week, just asked him some questions about, like, why he reached out, and turns out he was at one of our or an event that I spoke at in 2019, so 4 years ago, and then he had a sales call with one of our guys last year in December. And then I had made a Facebook post and he responded to that like a couple weeks ago. So, like, I can't look at a particular Facebook ad or a webinar or a post or a campaign and say, hey, this guy came from that thing. But I can put like the human element into it and say, all right, well, events. We don't generally get a lot of like new clients from events like the week after the event, but over the course of the next year, 2 years, 3 years, it's a long-term brand building thing. Social media, okay, posting every day on social media. We don't know what post is going to trigger what person to reach out, but we know that it does work. So let's continue doing that. Let's continue doing events and investing in events, because we know that it's not just the immediate ROI, it's that long-term ROI. So that's why you need that human element in addition to the data that Elizabeth is talking about here. And another thing on that is, this might seem overwhelming if you've never done it. And you might be like, oh yeah, we have to be X number $1 million company a year in order to have some tracking in place. It is not that complex. A lot of our clients do have all this stuff tracked and we help them with it. So if that's something that you do want help with, again, reach out to us and we can guide you through like what that looks like and how you would start to do that, because it is overwhelming. If you've never done it, it might be this big scary monster. Like, oh my gosh, I have no idea even like where to start. I don't even know what questions to ask, right? But you can do it. And the most successful companies that we work with, they have their tracking like pretty dialed in as much as they can. So it helps a ton.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can seem overwhelming for sure, especially if you've been doing it in a way that wasn't super clear or organized in the past. But if you sit down with some help, some support, and kind of get things organized, automate things if you can. If you don't have things automated, that's all right. There's still a lot, that human element helps a ton. I will say, one of the things we hear frequently is like, well, we don't know where people have heard about us, but that's a big one to ask. Training whomever takes calls or appointments, training them to say, well, what made you call us, or how'd you hear about us, or where did you see us, or anywhere else, and sometimes people are going to call and say like, oh, I saw you on the internet, which is not very helpful, obviously, but sometimes you can probe a little bit. Sometimes you can have some questions like, oh yeah, well, we did this recently, we were at this event, were you there? I know that kind of probing feels like a little bit of work, but sometimes it's 10 extra seconds on a phone call and it gives you a little bit more clarity. That human element is really helpful for sure.
Yes, those probing questions are key, not just for gathering that data, but for making your sales appointment stronger and more likely to go well. Here's what I mean by that. So Elizabeth said you can ask, hey, how'd you hear about us? Great, that's service level. Another thing you can ask, that probing question, is, hey, what did you see that like made you want to reach out to us specifically? Because if you're generating leads through your brand, like people are seeing your content, they're seeing your truck, they're seeing going to your website. What did you see that made you want to reach out to us? And that gives them an opportunity to sell you on why they like you, right? Oh, I checked out your Google reviews and like they were amazing. Or, hey, I really like that video on your website that showed the process, because, I thought it was like a big process to get a roof done, but I didn't know that you could actually do it in one day. That was really cool. And that maybe, want to reach out to you guys. Or, hey, my friend worked with you guys, or you're always tagged in local Facebook groups. And just that probing question, number one, again, gives you that data. Number two, now your prospect is explaining like to you why they like you and why they want to reach out to you. And that's a great way to start a sales appointment. So yeah, don't be afraid to have those conversations. man, I feel like we could go like down a rabbit hole in each of those, but I hope that we gave folks a pretty good grasp on really how to think about these questions and how to answer them. Thank you so much for sharing, Elizabeth, based on your frontline experience working with our clients for so many years, helping them build out all this stuff.
Absolutely. This is great stuff. Like you said, we could talk about this for hours, and we want to be a resource for our industry. You know, marketing is a beast, but when you break things down simply, you know, into milestones, it can be so much fun, and it's absolutely so rewarding. So I love these discussions. I love being able to answer these for our clients and, you know, people in our industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We are passionate about education. Like, we're a marketing training company. For those of you who don't know, by the way, we're a marketing training company. We are not an agency where, you know, we're going to build you a website and run your ads and all that stuff. We train roofing companies, specifically roofing companies, on how to build out and run their own marketing in-house. And so that's what we do. If you guys are interested in learning more about that, or again, if you're just like, okay, I'm digging what you guys said, I do have some specific questions, feel free to reach out to us at contractordynamics.com. We'll put a link below wherever this video or audio is. And when you schedule a call at Contractor Dynamics, again, it's not with a sales rep, it's with Elizabeth right here, Elizabeth Lytle, or me, Joseph Hughes. And we are hopping on Zoom for 30 minutes, one-on-one, and asking you some questions about your business. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? Tell us about what you're doing marketing-wise, what's working, the good, bad, the ugly. Tell us what you want, who you have in place, what kind of time you have. And on that call, we will give you specific steps on what you can do. And a lot of times we'll also include some resources in a Google Doc and email that to you after the call, so you have those. So whether or not we ever talk again, you have some more clarity and direction in your marketing. And of course, if you do want to learn more about what we do in terms of our marketing training program, then we can talk more about that, set up a second call to go through that as well. We don't even go through that on that first call. That first call is just a marketing clarity call to give you some clarity. And if we decide that you're interested and you're willing and able to join our marketing training program, we'll set up a whole second call to go through that. So there is no risk. We're not like high pressure or anything like that. It is literally one of us being on that call with you guys. So of course, now if this episode is, you know, if you're watching this 2 years after we're recording this, that we might have other people in like a sales department. But as of right now, as of September 2023, and for the next few months, at least through the end of this year, it's going to be Elizabeth and me. So that's the deal. If you guys want to learn more above me on that, or, you know, besides that, I hope you got value out of this. Feel free to leave us a comment, send us a message, check us out on our social media platforms, Contractor Dynamics. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel or to our podcast. Make sure that you get the content on a weekly basis. We hope this was super valuable to you. And thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.